Windows 10 supports both desktop apps and Microsoft Store apps. These two types of apps are installed and managed differently. Desktop apps tend to be large and complex, multi-purpose software programs and are typically designed for desktop computers and laptop computers. You can deploy desktop apps in a number of ways, including installing the app interactively using either an .exe or MSI installer file. This is generally provided on a product media DVD. Using automatic app deployment methods such as the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit or MDT or System Center Configuration Manager. Implementing a group policy object-based deployment method. Building the required apps into a desktop computer image, which you then deploy. Using the MSI exec .exe installer. Use the following syntax shown here to install an application, in this case from a server computer, in the Apps Shared folder. For further information before you take the exam, visit the following website to find out about the syntax of MSI exec.exe. Using group policy objects to deploy apps is fairly simple, but there are a number of requirements. These include that the target computers must be members of an Active Directory domain service domain. Apps must be available as a .msi installer package. When you use GPOs to deploy your apps, you can target the app deployment to container objects in your Active Directory environment, such as a site, domain or OU. By using group policy filtering, you can also deploy apps to specific users or computers, perhaps by creating Windows Management Instrumentation filters that target specific computers based on their hardware or software characteristics. There are two ways to deploy using GPOs. These are to assign or to publish. When you assign apps, apps are automatically installed. If you assign an app to a user, the app is installed when the user signs in. But you can also assign the app to the computer, in which case it's installed when the computer starts, irrespective of who sits at that computer. Published apps can be installed by the user from Control Panel in Programs and Features. You can only publish apps to users, not to computers. It's important for the exam that you can identify the differences between these two methods. Let's take a look at how to assign an application through group policy objects, and also how to publish an application. So on this workstation, I'm going to sign in as James. James is a member of the Pearson.com domain. At the moment, we can't see an app called XML. XML Notepad is not listed here, so we're just verifying it's not present. If we go into Control Panel and Programs, we can't see the option to install a program from the network. Click here. You can see there are no programs available to install from the network. Okay, close that down and I'm going to switch to the server. So on my domain controller here, I'm in Server Manager. I'm going to open up the Active Directory Users and Computers tool. And you can see that there is a sales organizational unit which contains the user James. And so I'm going to create the appropriate group policy objects and link them to sales. The next thing to do is to create a shared folder that contains the required apps. I've done this already. I've got a folder here called apps, and it contains a link for desktop apps and for some store apps, which we'll cover later on. So just want to make sure that that's available as a shared folder. It is. It's been shared. So as long as users have read type permissions on the shared folder or read execute permissions on the underlying subfolders, they should be able to connect to and obtain the apps through a group policy. So it's important that you share a folder that contains the apps for distribution using group policies. So let's open up the group policy editor. So start by opening the group policy management console. Expand out the domain and locate the sales organizational unit. Right click and choose create a group policy object in this domain and link it here. I'm going to call this publish apps. And now I'm going to open the Publish Apps group policy object for editing. Okay, so I published to a user, so I'll expand out the user configuration here and expand software settings. Now the first thing I can configure is, if I'm going to do a lot of software publishing, I can configure the software installation properties here. So I can choose a default method, so prompt or always publish or always assign, or choose some advanced method, and also to specify default package location. Well, I'm going to do that. I'm going to say it's always available under //dc, which is the name of the server, /apps, which is the name of the share. I can do some other advanced things here. For example, on the file extensions page, I can specify that an application is installed automatically if a user encounters a particular file extension. So if a user double-clicked on an XLS file, it would automatically install Office, if that's what I wanted it to do. I'm going to leave that for now because that's probably a little bit too advanced for the exam, but it's worth having a play if you have the time. So click OK for that, and then I'm going to create a new package. Oops. New package, and specify, as you see here, it's already defaulted to //dc/apps. I'm going to specify desktop apps, and I'm going to choose to make available the Windows 10 Creators Update ADMX file. As a matter of interest, that's just a package that installs some group policy updates. And I'm going to choose to publish it, or assign it, or advanced. Remember that you can publish apps to users, but only to users. You can't publish apps to computers, but you can also assign apps to computers. The difference being, published means the user can choose to install it through Control Panel. Assigned means it's automatically available. That's actually how I remember. Published panel, assigned automatic. I don't know if that's helpful. So that's now made that package available, or it will do in a moment. There we go. Later on, I can change the properties of this. I can change it to assign if I want to, and I can do things like remove the application or redeploy the application if users are experiencing problems. I can also view the properties of an application, which allow me to look at what's going on with deployment. If there's an upgrade for the package, so suppose, as you see here, it says it's version 2. Suppose version 3 became available, I could add that, and I could make it a required upgrade. So there are a number of options here, but again, that's probably more than you'll need to know for the exam. Okay, let's see what the effect of that is on the client computer. So I'm going to open up Control Panel, which this is a published program. Go into Programs, Programs and Features, Install from the network. Now it's still showing that there are no programs available from the network. That's fine, that's what we would expect. We need to refresh the group policy. There's a number of things. First of all, the policy itself has to refresh onto the client, and then the client needs to sign in and sign out rather, and sign back in again. So to do that, we need to open up a command prompt and do a gp update /force. That will update the group policy without us having to wait between 90 and 120 minutes. Sometimes it's much quicker than that, sometimes it's the full 120 minutes. So it's refreshing the user policy. It says that it's done that now. Wouldn't necessarily expect to see anything here just yet, so we're going to sign out and then sign back in again. So enter the password, James signs in. Now, group policy can be slightly fickle sometimes, but let's see if it's refreshed itself. So there we go. You can now see Administrative Templates ADMX for Windows 10 Creators Update is available as a downloadable and installable piece of software. So the user don't have to install that, but we can force them to by using an assign option. So at the moment, published, the user has a choice over. So let's just close that, and I'm now going to switch to the server and take a look at assigning a program. So although I can assign to a computer, I'll just show you where that takes place. Expand computer configuration and software settings. I can configure it here. It's actually quicker to demonstrate by doing it through the user node, simply because I need to log out and back in again rather than restart. So again, within the user node, right click and say new package. XML notepad I'm going to use. This time I'm going to assign it. If I choose Advanced, I can configure some additional options. So I'm just going to say Assigned and accept the defaults. It'll take a moment to make that change. There we go. So you can see here, XML Notepad, quite an old version, but it'll still work for our demonstration. And that's now been assigned. Let's take a look on the client. So as before, I'm going to refresh the group policy. With GP update /force. It's the computer. It's still the user policy here, but it'll refresh the group policy for both the computer. That's done that now, and in a moment for the user. So that's been done. I'm going to probably need to sign out back in again, so I'll do that anyway. There we go, in fact. XML Notepad's been installed on the desktop, so that was quick. So that concludes the demonstration. You've seen how to publish a program and how to assign a program, in this instance, to users. In addition to using group policies, or instead of using group policies, you can also use MDT. If you decide to use MDT, use the following high-level procedure. You'll need both a management computer and a reference computer. On a management computer, create an MDT task sequence. Then create a boot image for a reference computer. On the reference computer, start the reference computer from the boot image that you previously created. Deploy Windows 10 and the required apps to the reference computer. Capture an image of this reference computer. Copy the image back to the management computer. Use MDT to create a new boot image and task sequence for the target computers. These are the ones to which you will deploy the image, including the apps. Start all target computers. Run the Windows Deployment Wizard to deploy the previously captured image and apps. Of course, from time to time you may want to manage the installed apps. Desktop apps are managed through Control Panel on the Programs and Features node. You can see here a list of all the installed programs on this particular computer. To uninstall a program, right-click it and choose Uninstall, or to update options, right-click and choose Change.